Welcome back to CS195 Web Development. This is week 5 CSS fonts. We're on the CS font size property lesson, and much like the one we just learned, and the one we're going to learn, the property is not super complicated. It is just font size. It's learning what you can do with the values that we're going to get into. So our success criteria for this lesson is demonstrating the ability to use the font size using the correct style, right? So we're going to jump right into the video. There's a lot of videos for this week, so we'll make it quick.
We can also use CSS to change the size of our text. As you can see by looking at the headings on this page compared to the paragraphs, the browser already provides default styles with different sizes for different elements. There's a body font size and bigger sizes for each level of heading. Sometimes we want to tweak those sizes though, and we can do that with the CSS font size property. For example, what if we want all of the text on our page to be just a little bit smaller? Well, we'll go to the style tag and we'll add a CSS rule for the body tag. And then inside that, put a font size property. Now, what should the value be for font size? How do we measure font size anyway? It's actually a really good question because there are at least 10 different units that CSS supports for font size.
At least.
Let's start with a unit that you've seen before, pixels. We use pixels to decide how big to make images, and we'll keep using them a lot in CSS. Let's try 11 pixels. Ha! Everything got smaller. Even the headings got smaller, actually. Why did the headings get smaller too? Shouldn't they be whatever pixel size the browser set them to before? No, because the default browser style for headings isn't specified as a pixel. It's specified using a different unit called M, and that unit is a relative unit that makes the heading font size scale proportionally to the body font. Let me show you what I mean. Let's go to our H2 style rule and add the font size property. This time, instead of thinking in pixels, I'm going to think relatively. How much bigger relatively do we want H2s compared to body text? Maybe 2 times bigger? For that, we write 2M.
And I'll pause you here to point out some interesting concepts. Remember, the H1, this is an H1, normally is the biggest, and when she changed this to 2EM, it looks like she made it the same size. So maybe the H1's default is 2EM. All right, so we're going to get into this too. It's not really a good choice, and I think she'll mention it, to actually modify the size of the H's, because if you need it to be 2M, then just make it an H1, right? Unless you want to change all of them and you want to make H1s 3M and H2s 2M, unless you want to increase all of them, if you want it a different size, just pick a different H, a different heading, right?
What actually happened now is that the browser has calculated a pixel size for the font. The browser knows that the body font size is 11 pixels, and you told it that H2 should be 2 times bigger, so now all the H2s are 22 pixels high. If we change the body font size to 12 pixels, then how big will the H2s be? That's right, 24 pixels. What if we change the H2 font size to 1.5M? Now the H2 will be 12 times 1.5, 18 pixels high. We can also specify a pixel size for the H2 rule like we did for body, and it'd work the same way. It depends on what you find easier, and like I mentioned earlier, there are lots more units that we could use besides pixels and M. These are just 2 of the most popular units, but if you're hungry for more, check out the documentation for font size or search the internet for more tutorials.
So yeah, there are a bunch of different things that you can use with that. I'll show you one more that's kind of fun, but I mean, you can see large, larger. There's other options there as well. Let's go ahead and try this out. Let's go full screen. Make the font so you can read it. All right, now again, I'm going to play with the fonts of everything, but so again, you're not supposed to really mess with the font size of the headings. But let's go and do the paragraph. So select the paragraph. I'm going to use the class to do it so we can kind of see some fun stuff, since one of the H1s is going to stay the same and one of them is going to change with the paragraph. So to select a class, you do the period, my class, we do our squiggly bracket, enter. So we've created the rule. And I'm going to fix this indenting because that looks ugly. All right, so again, the property is pretty straightforward. Font dash size. All right, that gave us the ability to change it. Now we just have a value, and this is where you have options, right? I can go 22px, and notice that it changed this and this are now the same size, and this is a different size. All right, because this is the unchanged H1. This is an unchanged H2, so they're still their default EMs. But this and this are now using the 22 pixels. Let's go back to 11. All right, so that's 11. Let's go ahead and try EM. Let's do that 1.5 like you did. 1.5 EM. All right, that's pretty close to what an H2 is. I think it's closer to 1.6 or 1.7, but right now we have the paragraph as a 1.6 EM. So again, if we changed the body, we added a body, then we could change all of them, since everything on the page right now is based on the size of the body. Now we're not going to do the body right now. We're just going to take a look at this. And there's one more thing I wanted to show you, is variable width. So you got to be really careful with 1.6. As you can see, that's really, really tiny. I'm going to do 5 for now. And if this was pixels, it's even tinier, right? The 1 point something pixels would be ridiculous. But we're going to do variable width, VW, that's what it stands for. And what this is the size of the screen dictates it. So see how they're getting larger? So now they're actually bigger than the headings, smaller than the headings, bigger than the headings, smaller than the headings. It's great for mobile devices and stuff. When stuff's smaller, it doesn't take as much room up. So if it was this large the whole time, as you start to shrink it, text is going to start to get gobbled up and whatnot. So again, the actual property itself, font dash size. And if you don't remember, you're like, how do I change it? Go to Google, CSS, font size, or CSS, change font size, and it's going to give you a bunch of different things. And then it'll also explain, what does this do? What does 5 pixels do? So those are really what you need to do, is remember pixels are straight pixels. EM is 2 times the size of whatever it's in. Most everything's normally in the body, so it'll be the base body size, but again, it can change. And then variable width, that is based on the size of this. And she said there's at least 10 of these to look at. So that's how you use it. We're not going to spend too much time on that. I just want to make sure you understand how this works. Don't forget to do all of your practices and journal entries. There's also some more information if you want to look down there. I don't know if you can see the URL down at the bottom where it says CSS font size M, VS, PX versus PT, blah, 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 blah. So it's kind of a nice little link. You can do some more research. So with that, that's the end of the lesson. We'll see you next lesson.